Welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast, mindset, exercise, and nutrition. We are three personal trainers and health coaches dedicated to providing information in these realms to promote critical thinking and assist you in your life practice. My name is Matt Gluckman. As always, with me are my co-hosts, Eric Menchie and Mike Urso. We like to bring contrasting perspectives and viewpoints on similar topics to help you make people think. We like to look at the psychology, the science, and the behavior and how it can help shape your fitness lifestyle. So take a listen as we peel back the onion, fall down the rabbit hole, and we hope we can help guide people along their journey as they continue to strengthen their body, mind, and spirit. We also have a Facebook group for those who are interested in following us on a more regular basis. You can just find us, it's Think Fitness Life, 3 separate words on Facebook. And we have a fun show today. We're revisiting Emmett Murphy. So he's a trainer I have the pleasure of getting to work with over at Excel and Holiday. And we got to talk about, I think, only 3 of the primal lifestyle laws that come from Mark Sisson and his primal blueprint. And we got through another 3 in this second round with Emmett. And it was just really fun to get to talk with him. And it's always enthusiastic. It's always thinking outside the box, and it's always something simple, just a better way to understand it and better way to apply it. So I love it because it's really information that can be directly used right after you hear it. So definitely take a listen to this podcast. It'll be a fun one. We'll keep our intro short today. So next week we'll be talking about coconut oil and alcohol, since they are 2 hot topics in the media today. With that being said, I think I was the only one with news this week, so I'll get started.
Let her rip.
There was a tweet sent out by Ben Greenfield pretty recently referring to running on the ground surface and how it had better implications for proprioception, meaning the way that your body interacts and activates certain muscles. So it talks about being barefoot on the ground and how there's like an electron transfer with the earth. And I thought it was pretty interesting, so I decided to dig a little further. And it's really just a newly written article, but it's old studies from like 2012, 2011. But the title of the study is on PubMed, called Health Implications of Reconnecting the Human Body to the Earth's Surface Electrons. And I just found it really fascinating because I'm always looking for a simplistic way to approach health and fitness, and this is something that I don't do enough. And it talks about just sort of reconnecting with the environment around you, whether it's indoor, outdoor, whether it's barefoot or you're just getting out in the sun, but bare feet being on the ground. So I thought it was pretty interesting, and I wanted to get kind of your guys' thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, there's the hands and the feet have the most proprioceptors in the entire body, so it only makes sense that it would be able to establish better, links to the brain, right, and movement, and just the whole proprioceptive feedback mechanism that's going on with that. So it makes a ton of sense for me.
Yeah, and as soon as you put shoes on it, you're taking a lot of proprioception right away from your feet. And I think as a society, we're just more, everything's on our feet, like shoes, and then we get home, people put slippers on or even have socks on, and you're not getting that true feel of grass, ground, wood floor, gravel, like whatever you're walking on. And then the electron transfer is a whole nother realm of, we're always adding electrons and positive, negative charge. And that's a whole different realm that can be dove into. Matt, did it say a lot about the transfer of electrons and how it, and the proprioception with it, or?
Yeah, it does dive in pretty deep, but that would require you to read it and actually explain it in terms that I would understand it. But it talks about earthing, which is basically being barefoot connected to the earth, and how grounding. Yeah, sorry. And how it just might be a really simple, natural way to prevent ANS dysfunction, prevent inflammation, prevent pain, And one of the first things it made me think of was because I was watching that show on Netflix, the Bill Nye Saves the World show.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things in one of the episodes he talked about was different prosthetics. And he's going through different prosthetics, and then at the end on his table he was like he picked up a shoe and he's like, this is a prosthetic. And I hadn't really connected the two. I just always I never thought of it. I literally never turned my mind on to thinking about wearing a shoe being a prosthetic. It's just something I do. It's just something. Yeah, I might have a different shoe for that will be better for hiking, or a different shoe better for running, or a different shoe better for lifting. But I never thought of it as like it's a prosthetic. It's literally an artificial body part.
Yeah, it's just an extension of your foot, really. And like to Eric's point, it's like it's a prison for your foot. It does all the stability. Something like, you always hear people saying like they have plantar fasciitis, and it's typically runners, right, who use a really heavily padded shoe, and there's a lot of like ground striking, but their foot's not actually doing any real like movement or stabilization. The shoe is doing all the stabilization for it. And if you think about, we'll get into it later, with the possibly like looking at joint by joint theory and all that when it comes to movement analysis. But the foot is supposed to be a stable segment of the body,
Moving.
and you know if we look at the foot being stable, the ankle being mobile, and then we lock our stable segment of our body into this reinforced kind of cushioning, well, then it doesn't have to be stable anymore. It can just be more pliable and mobile. And so when that happens, those tissues can get overworked, and the posterior chain start tugging on the foot, and so now you have all this this foot tissue tightness, resulting in inflammation, turns into plantar fasciitis. And yeah, I mean, you've heard probably many things about people going into those Vibrams when they first came out, the toe shoes, and going out for a run, right? They'd go out and they do their first run like 2-3 miles, and they would be like in pain for days. And it's because it's such a shock to the system. It would be like, would be doing like 200 squats with like your 5 rep max, over and over and over for hours. Like that's a lot of repetitions. Like of course the body's going to get shocked into some sort of crazy pain and adaptations that are going to occur from that. So yeah, there's a lot to grounding and being barefoot and the proprioception. I can use this analogy. I do jujitsu, and I do it barefoot several times a week, and it's really one of the only things besides walking around my house where I do something barefoot that is a high level of like performance and athletic nature to it. And I can tell you that far and beyond, since I started doing jujitsu more regularly, just my regular balance walking around, I feel so much more stable and so much more in control of my body awareness, just moving through space, just regular walking, sidestepping. I don't feel off balance at all. And I just feel like that's because my foot has created so much more input to my brain and my spatial awareness, and all that proprioception that I'm getting from the feedback of my foot being in contact with the direct ground. I mean, I just feel like there's so many benefits to it.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people go with barefoot or even like shoeless training is I'll use it for people to get a better sense of awareness of their feet on the ground. Most people that I've trained, they wear shoes. They can't even feel the ground through their shoes, or they can't even feel the bottom of their shoes through their shoes. So if that's the point and they go to squat, it's like they're not even really feeling anything. They're just kind of moving through space. So I think that's big for especially getting people to really feel what's going on and feel heels and toes on a floor or on a surface, and then put that into training. I mean, shoes can screw up a lot of people. And I think there's a lot of bad shoes out there, and people wear them all the time.
Turning anything on. And I'm glad you guys are making the distinction between the two. Like it's about grounding, just getting your foot out of a prosthetic, out of like a cast, so to speak. It's not necessarily about needing to be barefoot outside in the dirt, right? Like it's just about you actually getting movement out of your feet, getting flexion back into your foot. I think one of the first things that made me realize, like, wow, I'm my feet are like tight or locked up, was in yoga, when like the first couple things, when you have your toes tucked underneath and then you're sitting back on your heels, so to speak, and your knees are on the ground, and you're sitting up, chest up, and I could only sit like that for like 30 seconds. And the yoga instructor had us sitting there in the very beginning she probably wanted like, I think 3 minutes. It felt like, probably because she wanted our brain to be able to click save on what the feeling should be like. But man, it was just so excruciating. I had to like lean forward, take my weight off my feet, and like pitter patter them out type deal, because it was pretty painful. So I do make a point to, if somebody has like Achilles issues or tight calves or something like that, I do try to get them to break up the fascia in the bottom of their feet and try to get more flexion out of their foot. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic, and I think from there we can kind of introduce Emmett Part 2, and we will see you guys next week. So enjoy the interview. And we are live once again. I'm sitting here with Emmett Murphy. And if you've paid attention so far, we've already done one interview. We were diving into his background and his experience and his knowledge that he has to offer everybody and all of our listeners. We got to talk about the 10 laws of living a primal, or 10 primal laws of living a healthy lifestyle. And we only got through 3 of them. So I'm happy to be able to get you back in here.
I'm really happy to be here.
And, you sent me a couple things to listen to and read, and I want to kind of talk about those first, because I think they're really important for people to hear this stuff. Is not in your everyday newspaper or news websites. And then we'll jump back into the primal laws, and we'll just see how far we get. Last time we thought we'd get through all 10. We only got through 3, so we'll see.
That's true. We'll get through as many as we can, and as much detail
and then we'll go on to another episode. So, estrogenics was a podcast you sent me with Rob Wolf and Dr. Anthony
J.
And Dr. Anthony
Episode 403 in the Rob Wolf podcast. If you want to listen to it, it's fantastic. One of the best podcasts I've ever listened to, because a lot of it was stuff that I did not know about in detail, and it was just mind-blowing.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what you sent in the email. And yeah, things are so mind-blowing to me too when it's something I'd never even heard about. And I'll put a link in the bio as well for people. But you should definitely listen to that podcast, because it's fascinating, and it goes into how testosterone and estrogen and different pesticides that are legal, and we talk about sort of the micronutrients and how it plays a role into our hormonal balance. And one of the things they talk about is how T levels have diminished over hundreds of years, but in the last decade have really tanked off.
They've fallen off the cliff since 1980. So it also talks about, I think we all know that Roundup or glyphosate is not really good for us. So you try and minimize the amount of contact or how much you eat with that. But I think this was called atrazine. It's also a pesticide.
Yep.
And he gets into great detail on that, on why that's horrible for your hormones and just the effects it can have on you. In fact, in some countries, Europe, different places like that, it's tightly regulated. You can only have so many parts per million or whatever. In this country, it's not regulated at all. So there's no minimum that people can have, which is probably why in the United States, like if you look at different health parameters, we're by far the worst in the industrialized world.
Yeah, no, I believe it, because we're always worried about turning a profit rather than, turning someone's health down the wrong way. But maybe I heard the episode wrong, because I could have sworn he said there was a regulation somewhere, and maybe he was talking about another country, that it was 3,000 nanograms per liter is allowed to be in water of the atrazine, but it could have been in another location. I'll have to double check that. But to put that into perspective, there was 20 nanograms of liter of estrogen in men, and in women, it's anywhere from 20 to 400 nanograms per liter. And a nanogram is 10 to the minus ninth. So it's something very, 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 very small. But you can think that, we men and women both have estrogen. Again, men 20 nanograms per liter, women 20 to 400 nanograms per liter, and the regulation for atrazine in water is 3,000 nanograms per liter. So it was really fascinating to listen to this guy, because he's biochemist, and he's really concerned with things on the molecular level. And it's really fascinating to listen to him talk about how the micronutrients played a big role.
And it gets back to the fact too that if you're doing this and you're exposed to this day after day after week after week after year, it's going to really have a negative effect on your health over the period of 5, 10, 20, 50 years.
Yeah. And it ties right into the laws of primal living. Last time we got to 3. The 3 we got to were eat lots of plants and animals, avoid stupid mistakes, and avoid poisonous things. And for most of us, we think, oh, poisonous things, like that's easy. I don't go ahead and drink like Comet, or I don't eat arsenic, right? But really, poisonous things is a long list of processed ingredients or chemicals or artificial chemicals that we put into our food that we're consuming, or we put in our drinks that we're consuming. So a little short list of poisonous things here, just so people have a better idea of what we mean by that, is vegetable oils,
industrial seed oils,
anything, sunflower oil,
yeah,
canola oil,
corn oil,
because those palm oil.
Yes, yeah. Those are all basically unsaturated fats, and people cook with those at high heat, and you're turning those into trans fats. With pretty much everybody agrees that trans fats are one of the worst things that you can have for your health. So just avoid those at all costs.
And even uncooked, like a vegetable oil is going to be much more foreign to your system than, say, an olive oil or coconut oil. And vegetable oils are really prevalent in salad dressings. So if you're somebody who is eating healthy, by having a bunch of salads, whatever it may be eaten with it, look for Primal Kitchen salad dressing, because it's Mark Sisson's line, and he makes all of his salad dressings with, it's like avocado oils and all these good ingredients with that he gets out of all the processed stuff.
Yes, per whatever you're going to get, which is great because it'll have basil, olive oil, and
it's
whatever.
all good fats too. Yes. Yeah, and I guarantee you'll read the back of all those labels and you'll be able to pronounce every ingredient, and you'll know what every ingredient is.
So getting back to this too, we also talked about sugar, high fructose corn syrup. Those are all poisonous things. Processed carbohydrates, especially the way we manufacture wheat and grains and corn and things like that.
The brand and the germ out of it. There's no real vitamins or fiber or minerals associated with the grains when we do it in this country.
Right. And I think we also talked about last episode how like Carl's Jr.'s chicken sandwich has over 100 ingredients in it. I guarantee you those are all poisonous things, all of them. Dyes and chemicals and, making the spongy bread. And so the better, I always try and think now when I go shopping or buy anything, were people eating this 20,000 years ago? Mm-hmm. Okay. Were people eating spinach 20,000 years ago? Yes, they were. Were people eating conventional spinach that has been sprayed with 20 different pesticides?
Probably not.
No, they have not.
Right.
No. So that's the number one reason to buy organic or grow organic yourself in your yard, is that it helps you to avoid poisonous things.
And I think a key distinction is kind of making the choices for yourself, right? Asking the questions in your head, is this something I should be consuming? And then investigating. And if you have to wait for a major event to happen or a bunch of people to abruptly get sick or die, and then for studies to be funded, to then put out published work saying something is negative, then you're waiting too long. Like you said, this started in the 1980s when we were putting pesticides, and I guarantee a lot of people then thought with a big question mark, is this going to be good? They didn't necessarily have the right answers, but they knew to ask the right questions. Is this something I should be consuming? And I guarantee there are already people who first thought of pesticides and said, nope, not for me. I'm not going to do it.
Absolutely.
And they're better off because of it.
Right.
So, ask questions, don't do things mindlessly, and try to get out of your habits of just consuming in the way you used to out of your old ways, because you're probably eating a lot of poison. So let's finish this list so we can get into the other laws of the primal living. Artificial sweeteners is just huge. You can find that in pretty much anything these days. Even I was trying to buy sliced ginger because I'll have
Right.
it after a meal just to aid with digestion. And in a lot of the companies that sell sliced ginger, there's aspartame or some other kind of natural sweetener in it, and it's hard to even just find straight ginger. Um, then you have your sodium benzoate and potassium benzoate, just more preservatives and sodas. You have your BHA, nitrates, nitrites, and a lot of processed meats for preservatives. All the food, artificial colorings for food, blue, green, red, yellow, they're all not the best for your body. I don't necessarily have enough evidence to say that they can cause a negative or not, but I can tell you that they're artificial, and I don't want it in my
Absolutely.
system.
People have been around 2.5 million years or so. They have not been eating those except
Yeah.
for like the last 20, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
So there's a field of study called epigenetics. And what it is, it kind of goes along this line, like you get certain genes from your parents, grandparents, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So epigenetics is how the environment affects those genes. Okay. So if you're putting all these artificial things into your environment, in your body, that affect your gut bacteria, that affect your cells, that affect your mitochondria, that's going to possibly have a negative effect down the line. Could lead to disease, cancer, all of those types of things as well.
Like you're changing your genetic makeup, you're changing your DNA based
Yes.
upon your habits, based upon what you're consuming. And later down the line, maybe for you, maybe for your offspring, and
Yeah.
you just don't want the
That's a
potential.
good way to think of it too, is that A, you don't want to poison yourself, but B, if you're going to have kids someday, you don't want to poison them.
Right.
So you want to treat your body like it's theirs as well, because you're passing your genes on to them. You want to give them the best chance they can have to be healthy.
Yep, exactly. Just to finish this list is MSG, the monosodium glutamate, also in a lot of processed foods. And one that's not on here that I see a lot is titanium dioxide, especially a lot of people who try to eat really healthy and have supplements and have multivitamins, which is a whole nother argument, which we won't get into today. But titanium dioxide is literally in a lot of supplements just to make it shinier.
Yes.
And I guarantee it wasn't around 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and they weren't consuming it then.
No. And when it says avoid poisonous things, we're not really just talking about food and water or whatever else. Is that it depends what you put on your body too. Like a lot of sunscreens have titanium dioxide in them.
Yeah.
That's not good. Your skin is an
It's
organ,
still absorbing
basically.
it, yeah.
So you still don't want to put chemicals on your skin. So all your personal care products, you basically want to have as few ingredients as possible. Coconut oil, things like that are more natural. You want to avoid all the artificial things. So number one thing I can just think of off the top of my head is antiperspirant.
Oh.
Okay, because it contains aluminum, which has been shown that can actually lead to dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So you don't want to be using antiperspirant every single day for the rest of your life. There's more natural things out there. Tom's of Maine and all these other products that don't contain these chemicals.
I'm glad you brought that up, because you're right. It's not just about what you're consuming. It's avoid poisonous things around you, right?
Yeah.
What you're breathing in, what you're washing your body with, what you're putting on your skin. And I think another major one that comes to mind is dish soap. And I love the Tom's products.
Yes.
They're all natural. They're low ingredients. And I think laundry detergent's another big one where people kind of make a misstep.
Cleaning. We clean our house now with just one ingredient, white vinegar. We dilute it down and clean windows, countertops, everything, and no chemicals. Because once again, I don't want to poison the dog or any of the kids or anything like that. In my yard, I don't use any type of, the only weed control I use is 30% vinegar. I mix it with dish soap and then also with salt and spray that if I've got any areas that, have weed problems. But for the most part, I don't use any chemicals on my lawn.
And I guarantee that if they did like a black light special, I'm the same way. A lot of times I will just, if I'm doing the dishes, I might not even use a little bit of that Tom soap. I might just hand wash it with water.
Yes.
I guarantee a black light test would show more bacteria in my environment, but I am healthier and I'm coexisting on a cellular and a molecular level with the world around me. And I think too many times we get into this bubble and we try to clean out all these quote unquote bad germs. Well, guess what? Not only are you making yourself more susceptible to anything foreign now that comes into your quote unquote bubble, but you're now giving the opportunity for that bacteria to get stronger and better at its job. We had this big issue with the about the antibacterial soap and creating the super bugs.
Yeah. I'm going to give a shout out right now to Dr. Gundry again, because that's where I first heard this. It's called hormesis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what doesn't
and
kill
I first
you,
heard it from you, so
it makes you stronger. Okay, so people are germaphobes and they try to avoid things and use soap which contains all kinds of antibacterial things. You want the germs.
Exactly.
Okay, we don't want the germs from the Black Plague because that'll kill us, but the germs that are around us, those help us build up our immune system. Okay, so you want to be a germophile. You want to expose yourself to germs as much as possible because your immune system will build up to those germs.
Yeah, you have to eliminate the words good and bad from your brain, and you have to disassociate them from other words, and you have to understand germ just as it is as an entity. And right, there's just like bacteria, right? We get sick when our bacteria gets infected.
No question.
We have bacteria all around us, working with us. MRSA, another good one. We all have MRSA. It's on all of the orifices of our body. It's the way that our internal cells communicate with the external cells. And there was this big MRSA, quote unquote, outbreak. It was a big infection of MRSA.
Yes.
And it was based upon the fact that so many people were using these antibacterial stuff that then made the outside germs stronger than our inside germs.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it's really kind of a misstep in the fitness world and in the health industry in general. Yeah, lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I would go ahead.
Back to Gundry though.
Yes.
Kind of taking things piece by piece and understanding how it interacts in the system. And I think even lectins, I would go as far as saying that's a poison.
No question.
And that's in oats. It's in your zucchini. It's in a lot of skins and seeds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So most of vegetables, if you're eating the skins and seeds, they contain a high amount of lectins.
Which would be considered a poison.
Exactly. They're poisons. Now, they can affect different people to different levels. Some people they can affect more than others. But at the same point, if you're eating those in high levels and high concentrations, they're going to have effect on your body, your joints, your immune system, all of those things.
Yeah.
Allergies.
And it might be a cumulative effect where you don't notice issues from eating them until months down the line or years down the line. But yeah, it's important to understand that poison is literally just something that's foreign in the system that can cause detrimental damage to your health eventually. It doesn't have to mean that it, because I feel like we think of poison and we think of like rat poison, like something that's going to kill you immediately.
No question.
Just want to make that distinction.
But if you're having issues with, say, autoimmune problems or arthritis, digestion,
you feel bloated,
I would challenge you to Google Dr. Gundry and his book, The Plant Paradox, which is all about lectins, and just take like a 30 or 60-day challenge and say, okay, I'm going to go on his food pyramid and I'm going to eat low lectins for the next 30, 60 days.
Yeah.
See if your health improves.
Yeah. Especially if you feel like when we go through these primal laws that you're one of the persons that says, no, I do all that stuff already, but I'm not getting my results, or I'm not getting to where I want to go, and you feel stuck or you feel like you're hitting plateaus. Definitely look into this, because it's an underlying issue that most of us didn't know about. I mean, I didn't know about Dr. Gundry until I met you,
right?
And I didn't know the term hormesis either,
right?
And it all plays a role, because you can't just live in this bubble. You have to give your body stress to improve and get better. Same way a vaccination works. You're basically giving yourself a little bit of that disease or that sickness so that your body gets better at attacking it if the time comes.
Right. So how that works too is that what you want to do, avoid poisonous things that can kill you or make you really sick. You want to avoid lead, mercury, all those types of things. But from a hermetic standpoint, you want to expose yourself to a wide variety in the environment as you can. Okay, to build up the strength of your immune system in low doses.
Right.
Exactly.
And I talk about this on my Instagram a lot, because I have ulcerative colitis, and fasting has really made a big difference in my life in what I can eat, and how I feel after I eat, and how I feel in the gym, and my recovery times between, like, if maybe I do eat something wrong and then I feel bloated in my recovery times. And then along with that, with the hormesis, I said, all right, let me try reintroducing sugar a little bit. Let me try reintroducing dairy a little bit. Let me try reintroducing some breads here and there and pasta here and there. And red meat. Red meat used to give me issues just like that immediately. And through that, I'm able to eat all this stuff again.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating because the body will truly adapt if it's backed into a corner, so to speak.
No
right?
question.
Um,
And one of Dr. Gundry's top rules is too, it's more important what you don't eat than what you do eat. So
Yeah.
it's more important what you're trying to avoid.
Right.
Sugar, industrial seed oils, all that type of stuff. So just it's easy if you do some reading, listen to podcasts, et cetera, on these. And if you just think, okay, were people eating this or putting this on their body 20,000 years ago?
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah. I know we're sort of born into this world and everything thrown at us we think is good. So I think it's good to always ask why. Get that childhood like curiosity back and just ask why. I love when I hang out with my niece because sometimes I learn something. She asks why and then I answer. Then I ask why again and I answer. And then she asks why again and then I'm stuck to give her an answer because
Right.
I'm digging too.
Right.
So it's really important to ask yourself why. You may not know what the answer is, but it's important to at least start asking the right questions. Back to the primal laws. Where would you like to start?
Well, I think we could start with number 3, which is really one of the most important ones from an exercise standpoint. It's just move frequently in multiple planes of motion slowly. You know what I mean? Like this would be one for yoga.
Mm-hmm.
This would be one for gardening.
Tai Chi. Yeah, right.
Qigong. This would be one for gardening.
Even going for walks, right?
Be one for cleaning your house. Like we talked about, going for walks, taking your dog for a walk. Mm-hmm. Just things like that. If you think every day, okay, I'm going to move as much as possible. It doesn't need to be super intense, but it just needs to be in multiple directions, planes of motions, gardening, picking, weeding, vacuuming, washing windows, all of those types of things.
And what you said last time, actually, we ended with it, which I think is a good point of reference for people, is for every half hour you sit, get up and walk around for 5-10 minutes.
Yes.
Because sitting's the new smoking you were talking about.
Yep. So don't let yourself sit for longer than a half an hour without standing up and moving around.
Because you're sending the wrong stimulus to your body.
Exactly. So if you're taking a phone call, you know what? Put a headset on, take it on your headset.
Go for a walk.
And go walk around.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're doing it and you can't go for a walk, do a set of squats, 10 or 20 while you're doing it. The Tim Ferriss thing, where he used to go in his office or bathroom and do like 20 squats and 40 push-ups, and that's all good.
Yeah.
That's how you want to structure your day.
And he's not high intensity with it. It's not crazy. You don't have to do a bunch of burpees at your desk, but it's just about getting movement back into your life.
Yes.
Because if we're too stagnant, then guess what? Your body's going to improve on whatever stimulus you give it. If you give it the stimulus of sitting in a chair for 40 hours a week, your body's going to get a really weak core, a really strong upper back, a really tight upper chest.
Yeah.
It's going to get stronger at the position you put it in.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's a huge one. Just if you're sitting for more than 30, if you're sitting for 20-30 minutes, get up, move around every 20-30. If you're sitting at a desk for your job, every 20-30 minutes, stand up and go for a walk, or take a call on a walk or something like that.
I have a few clients that travel a lot, and they've had back problems throughout the years. So what we figured out that works pretty well is have them get an aisle seat, and then once they take the seatbelt sign off, a few times, depending on how long their flight is, they'll just drop down in the aisle, do a set of 10 press-ups, and then sit back into child's pose for 30 seconds, stand up. They'll put their right leg up on the seat, just move around, then move down the aisle, put their left leg up on the seat. So it's just movement. So they're not sitting in a fixed position for 6 hours, because that's not good for your body.
Right.
And I mean, it's not good not only for your muscles and tendons and ligaments, but they've actually shown that people who sit more frequently all day long have high rates of colon cancer, stomach cancer, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it. So then the next one that kind of is right after that one is sprint once in a while. Talk to me a little about that. Talk to me a little bit about how in the primal education they talk about the 2 levels of stress you want.
Yes.
We want to be in that low and we want to be in that high, but everything in between.
Right. So what you want to do is you want to do some things that are really, really hard. Yeah. Lifting heavy weights, which we'll talk about in a minute, that also falls into that category. So do I want to go out and sprint for an hour every day? No.
I know I couldn't.
I want to sprint 1 or 2 days a week for like 10 or 15 minutes. Or like, I'll give you an example. Today, I just did it in like 15 minutes. So I warmed up, did a bunch of karaoke, sideways movement, things like that. And then what I would do is I would run 2 approximately 40-yard sprints in the turf here, walk back, recover a bit, and then I went over to the rowing machine, okay, and I would sprint 100 meters as fast as I could, okay, and then I'd walk around, recover again, do 2 more 40-yard sprints, okay, recover, then I go to the ski machine and do 100 meters as fast as I can, which is, they were usually around 20 seconds, 18 seconds, something like that. Then do some high knees, some sprints with high knees, some explosive power things, jumping, things like that. So if you have orthopedic problems and you can't sprint, it doesn't need to be done on the grass or on the turf where you're actually sprinting. You can do it on an assault bike, which is fantastic, on a pool, rowing machine, ski machine, anything where you can generate large amounts of power.
And really exert yourself
exactly
to max capacity.
And what the Primal Blueprint, their thing was, these should fall into the range of 8 to 20 seconds, okay, when you can produce maximum power output. If it's 5 seconds, is that okay? Yeah, that's still good. You're just utilizing a different energy system, which in one of your previous podcasts, you guys have discussed the energy systems. Yeah. Right. And if it's 30 seconds, is that so bad? No. But just if you keep it somewhere in that range, around 5 seconds to 30 seconds, something like that, you'll get a maximal benefit from that.
But I think what's also really important is how that that sprint, whatever it is, 8 seconds, 30 seconds, that total exertion of your body, getting that higher stress point, right? Because that low stress point is almost strengthening your body's ability to be at homeostasis and bring it back to its normal state. But then you want to strengthen that homeostasis, so you have to pull that what's the word I'm looking for? I guess pull that that line as sort of as hard as you can, that maximal effort, because a lot of us fall into that middle range, right? Most of us end up in that mid stress range, but the Primal Blueprint, they talk about how negative that is.
Right. So what we've gone through today when we talked about move frequently at low levels of intensity, where you're like below 60%. Like if I'm gardening, sometimes I might break a sweat if I'm doing something hard, but it's low intensity stuff. Okay. So you want to do like most of your stuff in that range.
Parasympathetic nervous system?
Exactly. Okay. In the upper range, where we're running sprints, lifting heavy things, that's just a short amount. You only need to do that for I do sprints like twice a week. It takes me 10, 15 minutes. Lifting weights, a lot of times I'll work out for a couple days a week for a half an hour. Okay. So you don't need to spend a lot of time in those zones, but when you're in those zones, go for it. Go as hard as you possibly can. Right. Okay. What you want to avoid is that 70, 80, 85% range, because that's what wears you down. Where's your joints down? Where's your immune system down? They have found that a lot of marathoners over the past, say, 30, 40, 50 years, as they get older, they're dying of heart attacks because they've built up too much scar tissue in their heart from spending too much time in that 70, 80, 85% zone, okay, which is, he calls a black hole. You want to avoid that because that's not going to be good for your health. It's not good for your joints, okay? Right. It's not good for your immune system. And you'll find people that train a lot in those areas will get sick a lot. They get colds a lot. They get flu a lot, all of those types of things.
Yeah, because, if you put it in perspective, there's 168 hours in a week, and if you exercise for 3 to 5 of them, you want those 3 days a week or 5 days a week, whatever it may be, you want some portion of that being in that really high stress range.
Yes.
And most of the times that 5-hour workout for the week ends up being in a moderate intensity, or that 70 to 80 range that's putting stress on your system in a bad way. And then in that other 163, basically the rest of the hours of the week that you're not working out, predominantly the majority of the population are sitting. They're not even moving. They're not
Yes.
getting that low stress movement.
Yes.
It is low stress on the system. Parasympathetic nervous system still functioning, but it's not movement.
No question. From a hormonal standpoint, too, if you think of it like this, like if I'm out hiking or I'm gardening or doing something like that, okay, oftentimes I'm out in nature, okay, my body's releasing endorphins, it feels good, I'm out in the sunlight, everything's great, okay. If I'm up at that, say 90-95% rate, okay, what I'm doing at that rate is increasing my production of human growth hormone and testosterone, okay, and that's basically anti-aging type hormones,
Right.
okay. Now, by staying out of that black hole dead zone of 70 to 85%, okay, I'm reducing my production of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Where you have high levels of stress, your body's going to produce more cortisol. Okay, so if you're spending a ton of time in those zones, you're going to be keyed up and you're going to be worn out and you're going to feel tired and exhausted all the time because your body's producing more cortisol.
And cortisol is catabolic on muscle and anabolic on fat.
Yes.
So it's going to break down your muscles purposely, and it's going to purposely look for things to store as fat.
Right. Cortisol is a negative. We want to have less of that. We want to have more production of endorphins, more production of testosterone, more production of human growth hormone. So you're kind of, by training that way, you're killing a lot of birds with one stone, so to speak.
I want to find one article real quick. I want to pull this up about how sprints reduce aging on the cellular process.
Yeah, so another thing about sprints too on a cellular process is they can really increase your production of mitochondria and increase the efficiency of mitochondria, which mitochondria are in your cells and they produce power and energy for your cells. So the more mitochondria you have, the more efficient they are, the better your cells are going to work, hence the better your body's going to work, because we're just made up of billions of cells, basically.
Yeah.
Human and non-human, both.
I'm going to link this. I don't know if this is the right article. And since we're live recording, I don't want to waste some air here. But I know I had a good controlled study and published article. And the title of the article was like reversing aging on the cellular process. And I'll just kind of go into more of the science of it. But we can leave it at that. Sprints are going to, like you said, increase your mitochondria, which is going to help reverse, though. Not even reduce the aging. It's really going to reverse the aging on the cellular process.
True.
So, yeah, we'll get into the next one here. What's on your list?
So I had lift heavy things, which kind of goes along with sprint, that too, because what you're trying to do with lift heavy things is, and this begins with, okay, depends on where you start. Someone who's completely deconditioned, you want to start a little easier and gradually work into it, or someone who's a really good athlete, hopefully you're lifting really heavy things a couple days a week. Okay. But basically the thing is, this is that 90% zone. Once again, we want to work to get into that, because if you can do that, what we're really training with sprints and with lifting heavy things, even is just hormones, testosterone and human growth hormone, which are anti-aging hormones. So when you go to the gym and you work out for, say, half hour, an hour, if you work out really hard, you're actually in worse shape when you leave the gym than when you came in. Okay, because all your muscle fibers are broken down. You have to rebuild those, and when you rebuild them, they'll be stronger. Okay, but you get a huge kick from running sprints and lifting heavy things for your testosterone and human growth hormone.
Gotcha. So I guess my question would be, if I were to say lift something heavy, what would that type of workout look like? We kind of explained how to sprint in your workout through the week.
Right.
I could say that I did my yoga, I did my sprints, I'm outside, I'm moving at a comfortable pace. How would I position my workout to lift heavy things adequately enough in the week? Okay,
so what we want to look at too is what types of lifts are we going to do with this? Okay, if you're doing, say, bicep curls, okay, that's not really going to benefit you hormonally at all. Okay, and from a time efficiency standpoint, it's a bit of a waste of time. So we want to do functional exercises that use multiple movements.
Compound
Okay,
movements,
squats,
multi-joint.
deadlifts, pull-ups, chin-ups, push-ups, bench press, things like deadlift. All those things use multiple muscle groups. They require a great amount of core work as well. So they're functional in that when we do those in the gym, those will benefit us outside of the gym, whether we play golf, play tennis, whatever we do, hike, bike, etc. Even things like, and it doesn't have to be always in the gym. So I have a tree stump in my yard, okay, and I have an axe out there, okay. So when I'm gardening, okay, I'll just go over once in a while, and this is not something for beginners, okay,
Right.
but I will grab my axe and swing 10 times at this tree stump from the right side, and then 10 times from the left side. And it jacks my heart rate up right away, and I can just feel like, the blood flow to all my muscles and extremities and things like that. That's lifting heavy things too, explosive.
Absolutely.
Pushing the sled, pulling the sled.
Yeah.
Anything you're doing that is hard, okay, and
also incorporating your neuromuscular system.
Absolutely, yeah. And when you do lifts or you lift that are explosive, that require more muscle groups, that require more, even, you see it in CrossFit a lot where they're doing lifts that require just more skill. Okay, all of those are really good for that as well.
Yeah, like really exerting yourself on a neuromuscular, skeletal muscular level. You don't have to go and try to bench press your car, but maybe you just try to do 10 perfect form push-ups as fast as you can, as explosive as you can.
Yes.
And that'll be enough.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. And one thing about that too, if you're doing exercises, deadlifts, squats, different things like that, you want to maintain the best form that you possibly can.
Absolutely.
Because you do not want to get hurt or injure yourself on these.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's very important, especially if you're a beginner, to start with lighter weights. Have a trainer or somebody you trust look at your form, technique, teach you how to do it, and then increase your weight from there.
And if you're one of those persons that is going to try to do it all yourself, make sure you film from all angles. The back, the front, the side view, it's all going to play a role into you understanding if you have any imbalances or favoring one side or the other, or just understanding your form and visualizing it. Because even the most experienced lifters will film themselves and visualize it because, it's easy to be in the moment and feel things out and feel like it's right. But then once you can take a second look or take that bird's eye perspective, you can really see and correct your own form. And again, even the most experienced lifters, people who are paid to be on lifting teams, they're filming themselves and breaking down their form, breaking down their videos. So it goes a long way to get some sort of feedback, whether that's from another human being, or whether that's from filming yourself, or maybe watching some instructional videos and again, just trying it at lower weights and feeling it through your system and feeling the feedback. It says I should be feeling it in my core and my quads or my hamstrings and my glutes, but I'm feeling it in my lower back. Well, that's feedback. Figure out what you need to do there. Maybe it's you need to warm up your core more. You need to activate your core more. You need to work on, controlling your core in the pelvic floor so you can breathe through that movement. Posture goes a long way. I think it's sort of in parentheses in a lot of these, sprint once in a while in good form, lift heavy things in good form, play in good form. I think that's definitely something that is super important that we haven't touched on yet today.
So I think one thing too that's important if you're a beginner and new to this, okay, so you want to crawl, then walk, then run.
Stages
so
of
if you're
development.
learning to do a squat, you know what? Just learn to do body weight squats, and once you have your form perfected, then maybe kettlebell squats or dumbbell squats.
Absolutely.
Before you progress to heavy weights on a barbell or something like that.
Absolutely.
So, and that goes
Start with body weight.
Exactly.
100%.
For pretty much anything you do, you can always start with body weight exercises and then go up from there.
Yep. Absolutely. So what's next on your list?
Okay, so I would say in this, we're talking about exercising more intensely and things like that. Okay, recovery. Get plenty of sleep. Okay. Practice good sleep hygiene. Okay. And one of the places that I found on the internet that had really good advice on this is Dr. Mercola.
Okay.
If you just Google Dr. Mercola, sleep hygiene, a whole bunch of articles will come up. Just some basic things with sleep hygiene. Okay. Don't be watching TV, and then try and go to bed right after. That's going to really disrupt your sleep. In fact,
blue light.
Yeah, the blue light. Don't even have a TV in your bedroom. You don't want that at all.
Yeah.
Okay. Unplug your Wi-Fi when you go to sleep. Okay, because you don't want all the electromagnetic waves affecting your brain as it tries to recover
Stimulating
as well.
it, right.
Exactly.
Right.
And you can get a thing for your phone, an app that's called Twilight,
Yeah,
which will take out the blue light and just set it on a different kind of amber light from dawn to dusk, basically, so you're not exposed to that.
Yeah, and a lot of the newer phones, I think Android and Google, their new operating system came out with their own nightlight in it. But I was really disappointed at seeing the level of shade that it works to, and it's very mild and it doesn't actually work as well as this Twilight app. But it plays a huge role because the blue light will suppress your body's ability to produce serotonin. So it's
melatonin,
or melatonin.
Melatonin.
And it's going to affect the way that you shut down your system, and you're just basically going to feel more stimulated trying to go to bed versus if you maybe read a book an hour before bed and then have your phone with this Twilight app. It'll make a huge difference. I remember first time I downloaded the app, that night I noticed a difference. I noticed that when I put my phone on the charger next to my bed, which like you said, we probably should be doing some time of turning all that stuff off. But I even felt like I went to bed that much quicker because I'm not stimulated and stimulate my brain to stay awake.
Yeah, I would suggest even that people turn their phone off while
Yeah.
they're asleep, or at least put it on airplane mode if you're going to use it for an alarm. That way you're not going to get any notifications or any ringing or anything like that. Other things that are simple that you'll find from this, you don't want to eat a bunch of food and try and go to sleep a half hour later. Okay, because if your body's trying to digest food, it revs your metabolism up, and it's going to be harder for you to wind down and fall asleep at that
usually
point.
Insulin's involved, which is a stimulant.
Absolutely, yeah. So just little tips and tricks and help you to set up a sleep hygiene program. Like your bedroom should be as dark as possible. Okay, you don't want any real artificial light in your bedroom at all. Okay, you want it fairly cool. Where people tend to sleep better in cooler environments as well. And if it's cool and dark, your body will produce more melatonin as well.
Have you seen those alarm clocks that they work on light? So when they say that your alarm's set for like 7 a.m., at around 6:30, the light will start to turn on and it'll gradually increase as to help you get onto a circadian rhythm and wake up with sunlight, or wake up with light, and gradually wake up rather than waking up to a sound that usually spikes people's cortisol levels first thing in the morning. And most of the time we don't get enough sleep anyway, and people snooze, or they're pulling themselves out of a REM cycle because they just aren't getting enough sleep. Like ideally you are waking up before your alarm feeling like you're ready for the day.
Refreshed.
Right,
yes.
Exactly. And most of us don't do that. And that's not getting enough sleep. Your body clearly is trying to say it needs more sleep.
Right.
And we say no, we spike it awake with this loud sound, and then we go down some coffee and cortisol levels just running through our bloodstream like crazy. So adequate sleep is definitely one that everybody could be working on. I guarantee it.
And sleep hygiene goes 24 hours a day too. So the first thing when you wake up in the morning, before you go to work in your office and you're inside all day, go outside and get some natural light. Okay. So that your body's circadian rhythms and melatonin production throughout the day gets in tune with what the sun is doing as well. So that you're basically going to sleep, somewhere after it gets dark, and waking up just somewhere right after it gets light if possible. But get some natural light first thing in the morning if possible.
Yeah, that's going to be the next one. We're running on about 40 minutes here, so that'll probably end today's recording.
Okay.
But I'll let you end with the closing statement. I just wanted to mention that, this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 10 laws of primal living that we've gotten through so far. So we're right on pace with how we ended with the last podcast. And I just want to invite anybody to write in an email or make some comments. We'd love to hear more feedback. And we were just really trying to open up as an open forum, so to speak, because I remember coming in this industry and just almost feeling inadequate or feeling stupid. And once I started opening my mouth and asking questions, I definitely felt more inviting, and I felt more knowledgeable. And like I said, the first thing you got to do is just start asking the right questions. Not everybody knows the right answers or even knows where to look, but the first thing we got to do is just start asking the right questions. So write us an email. It's thinkfitnesslife@gmail.com. And to see more Emmett stuff, and he has a great program that helps people get onto the right nutritional behaviors. Check out his blog if you want to.
emmettmurphy.blogspot.com.
And that's EMMETTMURPHY.
Correct.
And I want to let you have some closing statements.
So I started reading this book that I thought was interesting and very important. It's called The Nature Fix: Why Nature Makes Us Happier, Healthier, and More Creative. It's by Florence Williams, and looks at demographic data and studies that were done around the world, basically. And one really interesting stat, I'm not done with the book yet, but that was in it. For people who shut their phones off and unplug and get out into nature 1 day a week, they live years longer, and they also have, it was like 50% less chronic disease, like cancer, heart disease, gastrointestinal problems, just different things like that. So if you think that just by going to the gym every day and doing this, it's going to cut it for you, you might want to think about trying to get outside at least 1 day a week. I mean, more is better always, but at least 1 day a week where you go hiking or go fishing or go skiing or just do something unplugged. Yeah, where you're just part of nature. So thanks. That was fun. Hopefully do it again.
Cool. See you next week, guys.